Also, we're gonna, of course, offensively fortify the point, so the Germans can't get too easily back in here. Oh god, this dude came in a bad moment. Yeah, pistol gaming it is. Pistol gaming it absolutely is. And go back with your grenade, dude. Yeah, that high Browning though. It's an event pistol. I just wondered, why do Soviets have high Brownings? Okay, explains it. Okay, there are too many Germans here now. And here's the 6th rule. Yo, what's up? We are here in one of the most fun Conquest maps in the game, and also one of the most strategical ones, because this is highly asymmetric, so we can do some really cool maneuvers that other Conquest maps don't allow. So, now, when it comes to Conquest in general, there are basically 5 iron rules that, if you understand them and execute them well, you're gonna win games almost always. Now, what are these 5 rules? First of all, you want to be maximum efficient, and you want as perfect start as possible. This means, for the start, everyone who spawns close to the point instantly needs to run to the point and start fortifying it. Usually, every team has a close home point. For us it's A. And then an enemy point, which is their home point. This is here C. And then a contested medium point, which is B. Now I spawn close to A, so I'm instantly running to A and instantly start fortifying. What do other players do? Well, all the other players who spawned closer to B, they can start pushing forward. They're going to be the attackers. They cannot afford to build stuff, because the enemy is also going to push forward, so they're going to be instantly under fire, so they need to fight. And then the ones who spawn far, well, too deep in our gray zone, they need to build rallies. Which is extremely important, because if they don't do it, no one of us will have rallies. So they absolutely need to build rallies. Keep in mind, this is what most enlisted players fail at, so this is the part that usually fails. That won't happen. Also, lots of sandbags, so we don't get easily shot by the enemies. Now, of course, we have still our 2 doors, where we can get easily in, but all the enemy-directed doors are, well, either barbed wired or sandbagged or both, and we have perfect bullet protection. Now, after doing all of this, we can drop a bunch of mines and go to the next point. Here's a second rule. You want to be as efficient as possible with your movement, meaning the more time you spend on the points, the more efficient you are. The more time you spend running around, the less efficient you are. Efficiency is exactly what decides Conquest games, because Conquest, unlike Invasion, is about tickets and about time. Because if a team controls more points than the other, the tickets of the other team will start burning down. So every single second that you do something reasonable in terms of having the majority, you're being productive. Every single second you do some nonsense, you're being not productive. And running around, especially in very long lines instead of efficient lines, is being unproductive. So yeah, we're gonna quickly rotate to B to recapture it. Now going to A wouldn't make sense, because we can assume A, lots of defenders there, and going to C, and also it's further away. Now, since C isn't kept yet, we can deduce that the enemies have actually lots of dudes on B and relatively less on C. So in this situation, we even could have went to C. Though you want to have enough counter pressure in the contested center point, because if we don't put up enough counter pressure here, if we don't put up a defense, they will not just control the center and their own home point, but they will also be able to push into our home point, which is usually game over. So yeah, you want to set up, you always want to have a fight for the central point, even if just a few players, but you never want to give up a point completely. Because as long as the enemies see someone's there, they will allocate more sources, more resources, more soldiers to that point. If they see a point is completely empty, they know, oh, you must be on the other parts. We can afford to not have any soldiers here and go full force on the remaining point. Yeah, so never appear too weak, because this gives enemies quite the perfect information where they need to go. Alright, now these windows are also quite good for shooting through the windows from all types of nasty angles. No armament fun allowed. Alright, now this point obviously needs lots of buffer, needs lots of sandbags. It's so ridiculously open, especially for the central parts. Like, not having sandbags is just stupid. You need the defense that sandbags provide, but our teammates didn't build any, so yeah. Now comes the third rule of Conquest. You want to counter-attack. Or just, you want, or in other words, you want to blow up the enemy. You want to always counter-attack. Because if the fighting is going on the objectives, yeah, it can be good if the objectives give you defensive advantages. Like hiding here in the shadow and in between the windows, yeah. But if the enemies are also on this point, the same rule applies to them. So we don't really get an advantage overall. What we... I wanted to hide there, but there wasn't space. What is good though, is if you keep the fighting away from the points. Because the further away from the points the fighting is, the less of a problem it is if you die. Because then the enemies still have to run, and you still have enough time. But if the fighting is going on the points, then the enemies will gonna cap way too quickly. And even a difference of 30 seconds is significant, because 30 seconds of ticket burn, yeah, it's normal in Conquest that you constantly lose and win and lose and win the points. So if we lose and win this point 15 times in a row, or that's realistically speaking 10 times, well, every time 30 more seconds of ticket burn can decide the game easily. So yeah. Now the fourth rule is that the Conquest games usually behave and usually play out in waves, where you can have control, even really good control, but then you lose the point, depending on what happens. For example, I just saw we had most of our team on the center, not doing anything, not being on the points. Yeah, this explains why we lost the point. Alright, let's call artillery where the enemies are in the trench system. You also need very good map knowledge for Conquest, because Conquest is it's the most skill intense game mode in the game, because it's the most equal one, it's the most fair one. You can't expect the map to give you hard advantages. You can't. Like almost all Conquest maps are very equal. I hope that's not a German. Oh my, it is a German, of course. Yeah, this position isn't too good, but yeah, better than nothing. Yeah. And it's normal that you, if you have control over 1 or 2 points, that you're gonna lose the points, but then it counter-attack in the next wave and then you regain control. Now the reasons for that are multiple. I'm gonna save the time, not explain them, but the short summary is, if your teammates don't stick to the iron rules that we just proposed in the beginning, they're usually gonna start, whenever they think they're winning the game, they're gonna start to mess everything up and throw everything away. For example, once we control, when a team sees, oh, we control 2 points, now let's grab the last point. This is when they start running around like monkeys and lose all their efficiency and, yeah, and lose the lead. Because all the enemies need to do in this moment is to either get lucky and be in the right moment in the right time, or just to have a smart counter-attack or smart flanking, and then they're gonna overpower you. So yeah. Alright, what we need now is... well, we can go for C. Now, here's the 5th rule, or 4th, I forgot the counting. You want to be flexible and rotate. Yeah, I think we need... there's a tank. Yeah, there's a tank. If I spawn there with paratroopers, I'm just gonna get blown up. Yeah, we need rallies. You obviously always want to have rallies up. So if you haven't built rallies yet, you always want rallies up. Which is true for every single player in the game. In Conquest, this is not Invasion where you can afford having only 4 rallies per team. In Conquest you need 10 rallies always, because they will be destroyed non-stop. Meaning, if every player builds a rally, on average you can expect 6 players to have a rally actually alive. Alright, and you also want 3 APCs, of course. Now, when it comes to flexibility, you want to read the flow of the battle, as in real life too, during battles. And here the flow so far is, we have a good position for A, because, well, guess what, I fortified it in the beginning. Now we have 2 APCs and 1 rally for A, so A is very safe. And even if the enemies counterattack it, as long as we have 1 defender, we're gonna have good trades, because it's gonna be hard to cap. But the enemies are overcommitting hard for B. despite our constant efforts to hold B, the enemies always take it back. This is a clear indicator that the enemies have strong forces, strong spawns for B, but this means that they also will have relatively weak spawns for C. So instead of using the standard tactic of going to the close point, we can just go to the, well, because the close point tactic doesn't work with B, we go to the further away point, but weaker point. Yeah, but as we can expect, there's only one dude here, because I just arrived with one dude, and yeah, he literally, and it was literally 50-50. Okay. Yep. And this is the flanking maneuver. You want to see, alright, does flanking make sense or not? It usually doesn't. Like the reason why you don't just constantly, oh my god, that dispersion though. The reason why you just don't constantly flank is flanking takes a lot of time and loses efficiency for you. So if you would run around the whole time, headshot, and telling to ourselves, oh, we're doing flanking. No, we're not doing flanking. We're just running around all this time. So you only want to flank if either one point doesn't work, like B, so you're forced to do something else, or if you have strong indicators that it's actually going to be very much worth it, which we had here, because, yeah, we saw that B is overcommitted and also C undercommitted. Also for this map, the way we were placed around A, it wasn't even that far away for us to run here to C. Also, we're gonna, of course, offensively fortify the point, so the Germans can't get too easily back in here. Oh god, this dude came in a bad moment. Yeah, pistol gaming it is. Pistol gaming it absolutely is. And go back with your grenade, dude. Yeah, that high browning though. It's an event pistol. I just wondered, why do Soviets have high brownings? Okay, explains it. Okay, there are too many Germans here now. And here's the sixth rule. It's not really a rule, it's just a tactical observation. If you take the enemy's home point, most often you will see the following happen. The enemies start panicking and start rushing backwards. All of their strong presence that you can see here on B, yep, all of their strong presence dissipated because most of them panicked and ran back to C. Now this gives us two advantages. First, actually three. We can build a close rally now here because we control B and we have the time to build rallies. As usual, whenever you are not under direct pressure of ticket loss, of ticket burning, always you take the time to build rallies. This gives us the two other advantages of we can retake B, which is what we did, and the enemy team lost a lot of efficiency. Because instead of fighting for B, or fighting for any other point, they were running around from B to C. Exactly doing the mistake of losing efficiency. These three effects combined cost the enemies a lot of time, and here's how you win Conquest. You want to accumulate as many of these little advantages as possible over the course of the game. Because every single second you do either something productive or not. And in the end, the team that did more right decisions wins the game. So this is literally like, this is the most chess-like, most strategic game mode in the game. And also, if Enlisted wants to do serious games, this is basically the only game mode that you can play on serious games because it's the only balanced one. Every other game mode is highly imbalanced in terms of attack or defender bias. Also, this is by far the most strategic one because invasion modes, in case of tournaments and stuff like that, yeah, it's more interesting to watch, but it's simply the fact that basically invasion mode and invasion games and invasion maps basically play themselves in terms of being usually very obvious what to do and what not to do. There's basically no flexibility, no fluidity, and there are no real surprises. But in Conquest, it's constant creativity. You always want to see what you're going to do, how's the team gonna react, how's the team gonna escape from a bad situation, stuff like that. Now, the last iron rule of Conquest: when you have everything under control, you're not under time pressure, and when you dropped that grenade though, and when you dropped your rallies, you want to start counterattacking the enemy infrastructure, meaning the enemy rallies, and destroy all of them. Now it's not too hard to usually guess where the rallies are. They usually will be behind the points. So yeah, in front of the enemy points from their view and behind your points from your perspective. So especially if you see lots of enemies coming from one side, you know, alright, this is exactly where the enemies are spawning from, and yep, this is where we're also going to drop more artillery strikes. Now we have the game under control, and here's one big mistake you want to avoid. If you have a game under a complete winning position, meaning the game right now is a 100% win, if we don't fuck up, because we have ticket loss on our side, the enemies are burning their tickets, because we control more points than they do, and yeah, we're gonna win. All we need to do now is to hold the points. This is where teams usually start doing the stupidest mistakes possible. If you have a position like this, you want to go for maximum efficiency and just defend both points and not do anything else, and then you get a win. And the enemies can't do anything against it, because if you have, let's say, 50-50 or more intelligently 40-60 with a majority for B, since we can expect more enemies to be here, if you just go hardcore into defending these points, there's nothing the enemies can do, because they can't overpower us. The only way to overpower us would be if they go with almost 10 players to 1 point. Alright, if they do this, we can instantly counterattack them in their own home point, and it's again 2 for 1. So you see, once we established a strong position, a dominant position you can call it, which means you have 2 points and you have good rallies for your points, and as a bonus you potentially also kill the enemy rallies, then there's nothing the enemy team can do. The only chance they have is your team completely being stupid and throwing away the game. Alright, now, since there's no enemy on B, whenever you don't see enemies coming to a point, you just want to counterattack. But don't counterattack in the open, counterattack where you don't get shot easily, like a trench is perfect for that. And also always towards where you expect the enemy rally points. Alright, now this is an assault F4, so you should have the high jumping perk. So we can jump around the trench theoretically. Though I'd rather have less enemies around me before I start jumping. Ugh. That were close bullets, they could have hit my head instead. Alright, let's jump. Oh, this dude also jumped. Yep, that looked like a high jump. Like 40% high jumping is actually very cool. It's not just very useful, but it's also very fun, and it looks very nice. Oh yeah, that Uragan though, the long range precision is surprising for such a high fire weapon. Yeah, now we just basically have to manage our real estate. If the enemies cap, okay, the enemies are retaking their own point. Yep, so there's it means we don't have anyone on there. We just need to go hardcore into B, and then we're gonna have the point again. The most important thing is to never stress out, because it doesn't matter how the situation currently looks. What matters is the overall situation, and you don't see the overall situation on the top of the screen. You don't see the amount of rallies. You don't see what's going to happen in the next minutes. You need to think about it and imagine it. So never stress out, even if this, for example, I already won games that looked exactly like this on the opposite side of the team. I even uploaded 2 of them. They're like a couple-year-old games. Also Conquest. I think one was in Reich Chancellery. Very old game where I played Germans. It's not the new one where I played Soviets. And yep, all you need to do is just go, well, okay, to make it simple and short, what can the enemies do now to win? This is also what you want to ask yourself in order to prevent losing, because if you're in a winning position, you don't want to think about how to win, because you're literally wasting your thinking capacity. You want to think about how could you still lose, because it gives you the answers you need much more directly. And the way for us to lose is if we just jump around and run around. Yeah, so this is the mistake we need to avoid. We just need to stay here, go maximum efficient, and just defend. Which, oh, guess what a surprise, which is the first iron rule, or second iron rule of Conquest, to be maximum efficient. Yeah, what? Yeah, it was the second. The first one was always do the defense in the beginning. Alright, and you see, we are losing A, but we're instantly recapping C. Because, tada, counterattack. The enemies, here's the thing, the enemies are overstretching hard. The smart thing for them would be to go only for C and A. Because they see now that we have very good infrastructure for B. They don't In the beginning they constantly had B, but now we constantly have B, even if they cap or recap. So our strong points now are B, and, well, C is flexible, but A is our weak point. They need to push into A and C, but they're not doing it. Also, since they're basically, yeah, like the game is won now 100%, basically. Let's have fun with the bombs. Yep, and there's a plane, let's have fun with him too. Usually, in Conquest, you don't want to take planes. Unless you're an extremely good pilot who knows exactly what you want to do in the particular moment. Planes in Conquest are a big waste of tickets, and having basically 10% fewer players on the ground is usually a big problem. So the only planes I would use in Conquest matches are planes that are either P-47 overpowered level, or planes that I can use as bombers and paratroopers. For example, this plane has 3 dudes, so I can bomb and then jump behind enemy lines. Yeah, this is great, obviously, but normal planes are very useless. Tanks can be extremely good or extremely bad, depends on the map. For example, this map tanks are really good, but they're also risky, and since the enemies didn't use tanks, I also didn't use any tanks, because I didn't want to take the risk of not having infantry presence. Alright, that was a great game. You saw the enemies dominated us in the beginning. After the initial stuff settled, the enemies kept 2 points instantly, but we fought back ourselves into the game, and with great decisions, we got a highly deserved win. Alright, let me know what you think. And of course, if you're new, subscribe and like the video. And until soon, goodbye.